Йоринда and Йориндел. Long ago there was an old castle standing deep inside a dark forest. In that castle lived a strange and powerful fairy. She could change her shape whenever she wanted. During the day she often flew through the forest as an owl, or quietly moved around like a cat. But when night came, she turned back into an old woman. The fairy protected the land around her castle with magic. If a young man came too close, he suddenly could not move at all. He had to stand there like a stone until the fairy released him, and she only did that after he promised never to come near the castle again. But something even worse happened to young women. If a beautiful girl came too close, the fairy turned her into a bird and locked her in a cage inside the castle. The castle was full of these cages. There were hundreds of them, and in every cage there was a sad bird that had once been a girl. Not far from that forest lived a girl named Йоринда. She was very kind and very beautiful. A young shepherd named Yorindel loved her deeply, and they planned to marry soon. One evening they went for a walk in the forest. They wanted to be alone together. Yorindel warned her to be careful. "We must not go near the fairy's castle," he said. The evening was quiet and warm. The sun was slowly setting, and the light shone softly through the trees. Birds were singing in the branches. They walked farther and farther without noticing where they were going. Finally, they sat down to rest. Jorinda looked at the red sunset, and Yorindel sat beside her. Both of them suddenly felt strange and sad, though they did not know why. It was as if something bad was about to happen. After a while, they stood up to go home, but they could not find the path. The forest looked different in the evening light, and they were lost. Then Jorindel looked around and suddenly became frightened. Through the bushes, he saw the dark walls of the fairy's castle. Without knowing it, they had come very close to it. Jorinda began to sing a soft and gentle song. But in the middle of the song, her voice suddenly changed. Yorindel turned toward her in horror. Jorinda was gone. In her place, there was a small nightingale singing sadly. At that moment, a large owl with bright, burning eyes flew around them 3 times and cried loudly. Jorindel wanted to run to Jorinda, but he could not move. His whole body was frozen by magic. He stood like a statue. Soon the sun disappeared, and darkness covered the forest. Then the fairy appeared. She looked pale and thin, with sharp eyes and a crooked face. She picked up the nightingale and walked away with it. Jorindel could only watch. He could not speak or move. After some time, the fairy returned and spoke strange magical words. Suddenly, the spell ended, and Jorindel could move again. He fell to his knees and begged her, "Please give Jorinda back to me." But the fairy laughed. "You will never see her again," she said, and disappeared. Jorindel was full of grief. He cried and prayed, but nothing helped. He could not return home without Jorinda, so he went to a small village nearby and worked there as a shepherd. Often he walked near the forest and looked toward the terrible castle, hoping to see or hear something about Jorinda. But he never did. One night he had a strange dream. In the dream he found a beautiful purple flower. In the center of the flower there was a shining drop like a pearl. When he touched things with the flower, the magic disappeared. In the dream, he used the flower to enter the castle and free Jorinda. When Jorindel woke up, he decided to search for that flower. He walked through fields, hills, and forests. For many days he searched but found nothing. On the 9th morning, he finally saw the purple flower growing in the grass. In its center, there was a large drop of dew shining like a pearl. Jorindel carefully picked the flower and hurried toward the castle. When he came close to it, something surprising happened. The magic that once froze him no longer worked. He walked right up to the door and touched it with a flower. The door opened immediately. Inside the castle, he heard hundreds of birds singing sadly. He followed the sound until he reached a large room. The fairy was there, and around her hung hundreds of cages with birds inside. When she saw Yörindel, she became furious and screamed with anger, but she could not come near him because the magic flower protected him. Jorindel looked at all the birds. There were many nightingales, and he did not know which one was Jorinda. Just then, he saw the fairy quickly taking one cage from the wall. She tried to escape with it. Jorindel ran after her and touched the cage with a flower. Immediately, the magic disappeared. The nightingale turned back into Jorinda. She stood before him, just as beautiful as before, and happily put her arms around him. Then Jorindel touched all the other cages with the flower. Every bird became a human girl again. At last, Jorindel and Jorinda left the dark castle together. They returned home, married, and lived a long and happy life. And many other young people were also happy because their loved ones were finally free from the fairy's cruel magic.
Подпишись, пожалуйста, или хотя бы поставь лайк. Один лайк не меняет мир, но меняет путь того, кто делится смыслом.